today, and I want to break down the differences between front squats and back squats, because this is something that comes up a lot. Now, fundamentally, it comes down to where the bar is placed. Obviously, hence the naming, but that affects how much flexion we have at the hips. How much flexion we have at the hips affects how much flexion we have at the knees, basically changes the activation, or the focus rather. So I'll give you an example here. If I'm in a back squat position, okay, this is a high bar back squat. When I drop down, even if I'm able to keep a relatively tall torso position, my chest is still falling forward. That means I'm gonna get more flexion in the hips, and as my chest drops forward, I'm gonna get a little bit more shearing forces in the spine, meaning the closer my spine gets to horizontal, the more shearing forces, the closer it gets to vertical, the more compression forces. Now, if we switch this into a front rack position, now as I drop down, I'm forced to keep my torso extremely tall. This is also going to give me more of a focus on the upper back to hold that front rack position, but this is going to give me a lot more knee flexion relative to my back squat because I'm not creating as much movement in the hips. Now in both those lifts, I took them basically ass to grass. So the differences between those start to fade a little bit as you get that much depth. But if you think about a lot of people getting into a back squat, even if they're slightly below parallel, the chest is going to fall forward because that bar is usually going to be over top of that midfoot. Okay? And you can see that in this position, my chest is more forward as opposed to this position where my chest is more vertical. So to summarize, the back squat is going to be a little bit more hip dominant, sometimes often a lot more hip dominant if you're in a lower bar position, as well as it's going to affect the erectors in the spine more. Okay? When you're doing a front squat, it's often going to be more quad dominant and more upper back focused. The differences in weight moved is usually going to be 70 to 80% of what you can back squat is what you can front squat. So you're definitely going to be weaker in that movement. For a lot of people, getting into learning a front squat is quite challenging because it requires so many technical cues to take the pressure off the wrists and get into a front rack position that actually works for you. But once you get over that hurdle, it's a lift that has, number one, it has an exit strategy because you can dump the bar in front. And number two, it keeps the spine in compression, which for a lot of people is just generally like a safer way to squat. Now, I don't like to use the word safer, terms like safer or dangerous, because it's all relative to your skill level, your understanding of the lift, your mobility, your strength, etc. But I hope that breaks down the back squat a little bit. This was a quick one taker, but yeah, have a great day.